Hey, welcome back to another video here. I was just reading through one of my favorite books here by Ray Dalio, a book called Principles. One of the best all-around business books and life principle books I've ever read in the area of self-help and growth, and literally stopped everything I was doing just because I read something that I thought would help you tremendously. So stick around. There's basically one thing and one point of view you can take on your business, on your life, that will impact the way that you operate and change how effective you are. When others may be suffering, others may be fearful, running in scarcity, how you can come out on top, right? We always hear about millionaires being made, the '08 millionaires that were made out of a recession. There's always people that somehow, no matter what, whatever the circumstantial environmental factors are that happen to be at play, whether it's a recession, whether it's a pandemic, there's somehow is people that thrive, come out on top, and somehow take what seems like a disadvantage and turn it into an opportunity. I thought one of the principles that I just read here that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video was super relevant to a video I just made yesterday. That's this video right here. You guys seem to like that video a lot, so I wanted to come back to you with some philosophies you can take away from this video and apply today. And maybe this will give you some perspective. Okay, this is a much needed topic to hear right now, specifically during the times we're going through. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments below, have you ever read Principles by Ray Dalio? If you haven't, I will leave a link in the description to this book. I recommend getting it. It is one of the best books I've ever read, and I've read quite a few. That's just some of my favorites up on that top shelf there. So let's jump right into a little reading here. I'm going to do some reading for you, and we're going to analyze what we read. So Principles is a really cool book. Principles is broken down into two sections, basically three. It's kind of his background story, almost an autobiography, and then there's life principles and work principles. So life principles are how you can operate on a daily basis to change the way that you function for the better. One of the main things that we get to talking about and we'll look at is that pretty much everything is cyclical and there is almost no new events. If you want to get real philosophical, you can argue that there is no events. They're all just parts of the same event. But we'll save that. That's more like a book by Alan Watts. Maybe we'll get into that in another one. But one of the first principles that I got from this book, and you guys know, I've said this time and time again, be radically transparent and radically open-minded. Right? If you look in my YouTube description, I actually have that phrase written into my description. I came up with that over a year ago when I first read this book, around the same time we started this channel. So that's why I do things like sharing my actual Amazon storefront, even though it's by far not the most impressive thing, because my whole channel is watching me build things transparently and showing what actually happens, right? Not fluffing things up, and what really happens, right? Following principles that I've learned in business, and I'm only 20, so I by no means have learned as many as I'd like to now. Hopefully I could live a long life and learn many more and do a lot more videos like this one. But yeah, we're gonna be looking at work principles here today. I just wanted to give you that quick excerpt from life principles. Be radically transparent and radically open-minded. So that's probably like the first tip that I'd give you. Couldn't even imagine how much bad information there is, and information that is just not true, because someone wasn't being transparent or was afraid to be transparent. Right? So for instance, in an organization, that organization is not run properly. People may be scared to even speak their minds for fear of getting fired or whatever it is. So it's not an effective way to run a business. Now let's get to what I wanted to make this exact video about. Okay, so I'm going to read a little section here. We're going to start with the headline. Recognize that design is an iterative process. Between a bad now and a good then is a working through it period. So that's the principle here. Then below that, this book's really cool. It gives you principles, and then they'll be outlined into smaller sections down below explaining each principle. So these are actually Ray Dalio's principles, and he encourages you to go ahead and find your own principles as well. Now I've done that actually, and I have a whole journal with all my principles in it. If you guys want to see me read through those, you could let me know down in the comments below. So recognize that design is an iterative process. Between a bad now and a good then is a working through it period. That makes a lot of sense. Just instantly, I think that hit me. A bad now. Okay, things are not great right now. Specifically for Amazon FBA, there basically is no Amazon FBA. You know, FBA is the business model. You can't send things to a fulfillment center, at least for the next 20, 30 days or so. So that currently doesn't exist. That's a pretty bad now. That's about as worse as it can get, as bad as it could get for fulfilling products with a fulfillment center. It's just that it doesn't happen anymore. So a bad now and a good then, so somewhere in the future it getting good, is a working through it process. And right now I'd say we're in that working through it process, or we're in, maybe depending on where you are, I think I'm in the working through it process. Maybe where you are is you're in the bad now, right? So what we need to move you into is the working through it process, and then eventually a good then. That working through it period is when you try out different processes and people, seeing what goes well or poorly, learning from the iterations, and moving toward the ideal systematic design. So that may be super relevant to you for Amazon FBA, trying out different projects, different processes, seeing what goes well and seeing what went poorly. That is my business model that I follow. I test product ideas and I see how it goes. And we try and learn from those and adapt to create a scaling process where we have more of the good ones and less of the bad ones. Even with a good future design picture in mind, it will naturally take some mistakes in learning to get a good then state. People frequently complain about this kind of iterative process because it tends to be true that people are happier with nothing at all than with something imperfect. Even though it would be more logical to have the imperfect thing, that kind of thinking doesn't make sense, so don't let it distract you. And I love that he includes this little sentence here, that kind of thinking doesn't make sense, so don't let it distract you. There are thoughts in your mind that you don't think. And again, this is kind of philosophical. But your mind, you don't necessarily control all the thoughts that pop in your head. Most of your time is spent lost in thought. That's where a practice like meditation comes in. So surrounding yourself with positive ideas, other positive people, positive books. Doesn't even necessarily have to be positive. That doesn't necessarily mean anything at all. But surrounding yourself with the right information and analyzing your thoughts as if they were another, as if you were analyzing someone else's thinking. It's a lot easier to sometimes analyze someone else's thinking than your own. So again, this is a great time to think about this. A lot of people are getting wiped off of Amazon, losing inventory, don't have inventory coming in. I just smiled because the next section is spot on to what I was saying yesterday about a cleanse. It's literally the principle, has that word in it. But so many people are just choosing to stop or give up or stop pursuing the business that you started earlier this year. Remember all that drive you had in the beginning of the year? Where did that go, right? So the point of this whole excerpt here is that there is naturally a process from going from a bad now to a working through it phase to a good then. So don't get caught up and worried that you're not at the good then yet, because to get there you have to go through first both of those phases. One thing that I would say, if you could take one sentence away from that whole part, a lot of books tend to be fluff. I specifically like this book because there's not very much fluff at all. It would be this: people frequently complain about this kind of iterative process because it tends to be true that people are happier with nothing at all than something imperfect, even though it would be more logical to have the imperfect thing. Of course, something is better than nothing. So what I would take away from that is I'm actually, since my scaling of FBA products has been slowed, there's this sense of uncertainty about when FBA and fulfillment centers will be accepting more inventory. I've been moving my focus to selling FBM on Amazon and specifically drop shipping from US suppliers. So I don't have a video about that yet. It's really something that I've just been spending time on personally. But again, I'm shifting my focus to something that may be imperfect, but it's better than nothing at all. Now here's the next part of this principle. Understand the power of the cleansing storm. Guys, if you haven't watched this video right here, be sure to go watch that. I literally yesterday before rereading this, I totally forgot about this. And I was talking about a cleanse going through Amazon and how that might have been the biggest opportunity in Amazon history since the start of fulfillment by Amazon. So we're going to go ahead and read this part now. Understand the power of the cleansing storm. In nature, cleansing storms are big, infrequent events that clear out all the overgrowth that's accumulated during good times. So by nature, that's kind of the description of what a cleanse is. Cleanse happen in your body, right? I think the joke I made yesterday was the apple cider vinegar cleanse. You can flush your whole system. You do some people do water cleanse. Just don't eat food so your body has a chance to get out maybe things that are built up. In nature, big wildfires will happen. It's natural. It's a part of how this world works. We're the ones that label that a bad or a good thing, but overall, it clears out a lot of the overgrowth so that bigger and more important life forms have a chance to thrive. Forests need these storms to be healthy. Without them, there would be more weak trees and a buildup of overgrowth that stifles other growth. The same is true for companies. Bad times that force cutbacks, so only the strongest and most essential employees or companies survive, are inevitable, and can be great, even though they seem terrible at the time. So we're living it, guys. We're living in a time where there's a pandemic going on. There's definitely uncertainty, and there's definitely a cleanse. Now, what is the cleanse for Amazon? The cleanse is the fact that people can't fulfill their inventory through Amazon, and they also are having a hard time launching new Amazon FBA products because you currently can't ship in a majority of the products you would be potentially scaling into or launching. Now, what has that done? Well, everyone that had, 4 months ago, all these huge categories that were huge high demand products, we have no less demand for the most part, but we have a significant drop in supply because there's been a cleanse through Amazon, and a number of, maybe even you've seen your top competitors have gone out of stock. Number of people are losing rank because they've gone out of stock. If they weren't thinking ahead, or how could you have thought ahead, really, this was kind of a black swan event. They would have not known that they needed to place an order before this happened. So there's all kinds of things going on here. And only the strong are going to survive. Not only physically is there things going up against Amazon sellers, but mentally, maybe 50% of the people that were thinking about starting an Amazon business just got discouraged and are no longer going to do it at all. So you have to think not everyone is going to be as strong-willed as you or I, and a good percentage of people will fall off just simply because something got in their way. So that's why a majority of people won't achieve their full potential in life. Something gets in their way, and they let that be the end. There's never an end until your eyes close and you die. That was a little bit more morbid, all right? But what I'm getting at there isn't an end if you just jump over the obstacle, right? There's almost nothing you can't just go around, go over, dig under. I don't know. These are all analogies, but of course, you get the point I'm trying to make here. So if you're anything like me, those words will have meant a lot to you. I always try and look up to role models, mentors, coaches, people that know more than I do, especially someone as big as Ray Dalio owns one of the biggest hedge fund in the world. I think a big hedge fund is 10 billion or something. It's well over $100 billion managed. I don't even think you could work with their company anymore. They're capped off. So super successful people, study the gems that people have left you. You could read a whole book and download 70 years of one of the best investors of all time's knowledge, just like that overnight. So like I said, let me know if you've read this down below, even if you just read a couple pages of it, or maybe you have it on Kindle. Let me know what you thought of it, and let me know what are your principles down in the comments down below. Give me one principle of yours that has always seemed to work out for you. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I'll be seeing you here again on Monday for a new video here on the channel. I'll see you then. Later.